this just fantasy? Absolutely not. This is one of the most important comics of the 20th century, and I'd say even on into the 21st century. This is, of course, Mike Mignola's Hellboy. So this, it's spooky season now officially, and I've decided that for the month of October, I am going to cover all things, spooky and scary and dark and fun and all that good stuff. I'll still be covering, fantasy stuff, of course, and I'll still even be covering some newer fantasy stuff because it is, appropriate for the time of year it is. But along with some new things, I am going to talk about Seed of Destruction, which is the first story arc, if you will, of Hellboy. Came back in 1993, 94. And I'm going to go through and talk about each issue in turn this month. I do it like an issue an episode, say. And I guess this is a good as time as any to talk about genre. And that there's a lot of horror fiction that you could, I'd say, classify as fantasy. Particularly what is called like paranormal fantasy or paranormal fiction, is that since the source of the plot or the horror is something supernatural, it can be considered fantasy. And I think fantasy is a broad genre, and while Hellboy mostly sticks to like paranormal and some sci-fi elements, I'm going to say that it fits very comfortably in the fantasy genre, particularly in the fantasy horror, paranormal horror genre. And here, for our viewing pleasure, is my library edition of Hellboy. So this is an extra large volume. For comparison, here is the Seed of Destruction paperback that most people familiar with this work would be used to, with a gorgeous cover, of course, by Mr. Mignola. But yeah, as you can see, that this version is much bigger, so the images will be that much clearer. And we're gonna start off. This gorgeous image here on the front. Just absolutely adore it. Again, he does a great job. Similar to Frazetta with these are shadows, but they're not like super dark shadows. They're mostly just just the darkest thing on the page, but there's still some texture in there, and I really love that. Also love how his foot comes through the silhouette of the other underside of this tentacle. But enough of that. Let's get into it. You're going to love this episode about Hellboy, Seed of Destruction. But if you're interested in supporting me and this channel and the stuff I do, then please think about buying some of my books, which include Side Questers. It's a fantasy story. It's got 8 issues collected in this one volume. I have Haxan, which is like dark, spooky witchcraft tales, all set in the same universe as Side Questers. And I also have 3-Panel Origin, which is my superhero comedy book. I release new comics every Thursday on Instagram. This collects the first 3 years, and then this is a set of short stories in the same world. So if you're interested in any of these books, they're available on my website. Now, on with Hellboy. So talking about credits here for Hellboy, which one? We have a great image here of Hellboy. Hellboy is one of my favorite characters in all of fiction, not just comics. He's also a great film character, at least 2/3 of the time. But As far as the credits go for our first issue slash like first story arc, we of course have Mike Mignola on art duty, pencils and inks, and then he with an assist by John Byrne for the script. From what I understand, John Byrne was asked to join in, I think, because Mike Mignola was still not sure about his writing ability, or rather, not fully confident. And, that's something that he'll definitely change later because he becomes, just fully responsible, for writing duties on many of his comics, and at least is a co-writer on just about everything Hellboy and BPRD related. But John Byrne's here for this first volume here. And then we're getting colors by Mark Chiarello. So Mark Chiarello is not who I would say is commonly associated with Hellboy as far as color. And eventually Mike Mignola pairs up with the magical, mystical Dave Stewart for his colors. But Mark Chiarello's starting things out here. And I mean, you gotta feel good when Robert Bloch is writing an introduction for you. I mean, that's it's horror royalty right there, and just great image after great image. Mike Mignola is just really coming into his own as an artist with this book. This is similar. Oh, this is just after he did Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, which is another gorgeous book. But he wasn't inking himself there. There he was just doing pencils, and it looks, it's still a gorgeous work. But this is where he's, I think, really trying to figure out what he wants to draw. And one of the things I always loved hearing about how he came up with the design for Hellboy is that he describes Hellboy as a collection of shapes he likes to draw. Now, as an artist, that makes complete sense, but maybe for people who aren't artists, that you don't understand just a collection of shapes. But like, I get it. And it's like, if you're going to be drawing a character over and over again in a comic book, you want to enjoy it every time. You want to find something that you like about it, and there is something to love about every single image of Hellboy in every single comic book. And it's clear that Mignola is working very hard to craft just an image that he is enjoying the process of drawing. And the collection of interesting shapes is absolutely right. But here we are, chapter 1. And we have a dedication here to Jack Kirby, H.P. Lovecraft, his lovely wife Christine, and the amazing Elmer Newton. I will say right now, I tried to do some research into who Elmer Newton was, came up with nothing. If somebody else out there knows who Elmer Newton is, that'd be great. But otherwise, understand completely this dedication. And a cool little frontispiece here for chapter 1. And and a facsimile in gray of issue 1 of Hellboy that actually had a backup story of Monkey Man and O'Brien, because this was under Dark Horse's Legend imprint, which was started by John Byrne and Frank Miller. And this is, I feel like, the most ringing success of all of them. Even though Sin City was under Legend, I feel like when it comes to just influence on not only popular culture, but on comics, on art, on storytelling, Mike Mignola has done something remarkable with Hellboy. So right away we get Mike Mignola drawing the things that he loves to draw, which are like kind of like old abbeys, old ruins, mixed in with some natural landscape elements. And right here we have just like the seeds of destruction. No, seeds of where his art continues to evolve to throughout this series, where it becomes even more German expressionist, if you will, than it is already. More angular, more emblematic than it is. But even here, like, we have just a great simplification of forms and great use of shadows, but just enough detail to give the texture and the lay of the land, the little sense of the bricks here, and then even further, like closer in on this chapel where, the important events in history are happening. And I like how we let ourselves enjoy these images while we get kind of like, sort of a backstory dump. And that's something that does become a motif in many a Hellboy story, or especially his short stories, where like he wants to get the backstory out of the way right away, to just so you can get into it and enjoy it. And so he usually like puts it all down as early as possible. And here we have our growing list of characters. Torch of Freedom, which is a superhero who served with the army, and it's so interesting because it's a character that I don't think we ever see again, but we do see this guy and actually all these other characters again, because just the world of Hellboy has been grown so much out of these initial comics and these characters here, but mostly here we have Trevor Broom, even though it looks like it says like Rutenholm, it's just Broom, and he's the man who possibly saved the world, or maybe doomed it, by befriending Hellboy. Most of this is the basis for the 2004 movie by Guillermo del Toro, which I really love that movie. It's definitely Guillermo del Toro's own interpretation of the character and the mythos. He comes up with character dynamics that aren't present in Mignola's work, which is fine because it's an adaptation and it really should be its own thing. And Ron Perlman is a fantastic Hellboy with so much pathos and humor and strength and humility and all sorts of things. And it's just, it's a lovely rendition. But I mean, I'm always going to prefer and love this more than any adaptation from it. And that's fine. I can love the adaptations too, but this is always going to be primary for me. And we just, we zero in on an important locus, these beautiful standing stones. And it's images like that I come to Hellboy for. It's just, and Mignola, and just the spare, use of this, land in here to give it a placement, put it in the foreground, and yet the rest of it is mostly in silhouette. Just gorgeous stuff. And also I love Mignola's use of like just incidental imagery. We have like this knight and lady here to indicate the chapel that we're talking about, or that we're leading towards. Just helps add to the mood and the feel of the story and of the comic. And then here we go. Here we have the bad guys, hey? We have these standing stones, fucking Nazis. So it's it's real easy to make Nazis bad guys, eh? And, even if they're got the crazy kind of cool masks here, like this dude. And then we have Rasputin, and that was always the thing that really got me, was Mignola's use of Rasputin. in the lore of Hellboy. Just great iconography, great design of this page, of this panel, this Nazi tech, this dragon symbol with the Nazi swastika in there, and these giant like rope, mechanical gauntlets. They're trying to channel dark forces into this world to try to win the war. This is, of course, set in World War II, and they're trying to, this medium is talking to the spirits, and she's like, something's coming through. I always loved like the bright this like teal color that's being used here. It's being used up in these guys like goggles and such, and just I mean it's not it's not the color, it's not the same colorist, of course, that does things currently. It's not Dave Stewart, but it is still it starts it off with a bang, honestly. Speaking of bang, and we just have this this epic explosion in the chapel, and I like how they're in different places. So like the chapel's here, and the Nazis are there, and I feel like it's because he breaks this kind of summoning rod or whatever, that the Rasputin didn't bring the demon he was trying to summon there. And again, he's summoning what he doesn't realize is the Beast of the Apocalypse, which, if you didn't know that about Hellboy, that's what he is. He is the trigger for the end of the world. And just great silhouette use, great articulation of the forms. And it's like, once you've established setting, like things like particulars of the background like are only important if they are compositionally important or compositionally interesting, like the standing stone here in this. I don't know how much standing stones or people in the background would add to this image, because it's mostly we just need to see the failure happening right there. We don't necessarily need to see everything that's surrounding him, because like it's obvious from previous panels in this panel that what we have. So it's really, that's the interesting thing about it. I have not failed Von Krupt, and that's for sure. Although maybe in what he wanted, but not in what his mission was. And of course, here we have our first look at Hellboy as a boy, which is why he's called Hellboy. And he is, he's got his big stone hand, and I love this photo of him in this picture. I gotta say, the movie does a really good job of rendering this whole scene. It's a little different. Torch of Liberty isn't in it, and they're at the same location, but the imagery is done. It's pretty justly rendered. And then here we flash forward many, many years later, and we have Mr. Professor Broom here as an old man reminiscing. Love in this panel, like kind of all the stuff hanging on the wall. That's something that I always love about Mignola, is he does like these great like kind of cluttered rooms full of artifacts and stuff. And I mean, I'm a sucker for images like that. I just love it. But I also love how in this panel we get we got the suspension bridge here, and that makes me think it's in New York, which could be a good sense of place. And it's also telling that's like, okay, this is clearly the 40s over here, but this with a tape recorder, it's like more modern times. I think it's the 80s. Yeah, just lovely renditions of these things. And like, I don't know whatever that writing is, but I love it. Yeah, he's looking at his old photo. You can tell he's an old man now. And it's something that may come as a shock moving forward, is what happens to Professor Broom, because you'd think, because he's so prominent in the movies, that, he's a big character going forward. And he is a big character. He's just not in the way you think, because this is, one, I forgot to point out, I really love this panel within a panel of the tape recorder, isolating that to show that he's recording it. Really love that. But then, this great image of adult Hellboy. Because, collection of shapes, like I said. We have this figure behind him. Now, what's interesting is this becomes basically it's interesting. I've never noticed it before, but having read like further down the storyline, that is a very significant character behind him. It looks like it's just incidental statue stuff, and I guess it sort of is, but later on that becomes the iconography for the Black Goddess, or the a major antagonist to not only Hellboy but mankind as a whole. So it's really amazing that it's right here at the beginning at our first image of a grown-up Hellboy. But yeah, just what a great image, what a great character. And then just love breaking up the background with this black darkness in this wall. And we, and then there were kind of learning some more about this expedition into the Arctic. Love this temple. Like, nobody renders a temple quite like Mignola does. Or just like stone, like hewn stone. And also love these mountains. You know what I'd love to see? And it's probably never going to happen now, but I would have loved to have seen him do an adaptation of At the Mountains of Madness. Just looking at this and the Arctic and all that stuff. How about that? I mean, he reads Lovecraft, so we know this. And here we have, like, I guess, like the frozen form of one of our antagonists here, alive. Just great monstrous stuff here. It's just, it's very Lovecraftian, very like indefinable shapes and creatures and stuff, but yet somewhat familiar, yet horrible. And just, great composition after great composition. And then here we're getting to our key point, which is frogs. Man, Hellboy and frogs. That's something that, like, if you don't know, you're about to. That's a great combo. Frogs are nasty fuckers. And this great panel of him sitting on the desk with his his feet dangling down there. It's a carrying image. It's almost like a Pietà, but with it, where he's looking after this guy who's been very important to him. More important as further stories have been told. But just look, every time he draws Hellboy, it's just it's just great line work, great shapes, and just gotta love it. And also love these frog silhouettes. But sir, you've got frogs, and that's where we get a intense moment. And it's all dark and creepy and weird, especially like all this gross shit coming off of Professor here. And Professor's dead, by the way. Yeah, what a great panel of him after he's run away. Save yourself. And Hellboy's just kind of like, what? But then he like ditches his coat as he knows that something's up. And we have an enemy here. And I also love all these like freezes in the background. Just what a great way to frame it. Frame his hand, his gun. The little strip of his knee just to further cement like the pose. you know, and then all you need is like a silhouetted arm, like a knee and some eyes. And then here's where we have his enemy coming at him. He keeps it in the dark here. They're fighting, and then we get part of his face and his long ass gross tongue. And this is, you know, with all these gross growths on there, this is this is the first appearance of the Frgs. Yeah, so there are these nasty, you know, inhuman creatures that become major antagonists. They have these horrible long tentacle-like tongues. And this is a great fight scene here. Great physicality. If you remember in the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser episode, that single line denoting the passage of a fist. Here it is again. Similar time as that one, or a little later. Throwing them into a sarcophagus. And I love the explosion of the sarcophagus and the mummy and the dust. And it's great color work, honestly. A really great color work for this. I feel like, yeah, it's isolating the forms in a very particular way and really great. Also just, yeah, great faces. This is a gross, creepy monster. And we have Hellboy shooting the fuck out of it. Look at that splatter of guts. Like its head came off. Yeah, and then, you know, we get our first view of the BPRD, which that is a building / silhouette / shot of that every single artist afterward from here on out uses as reference. Everybody uses this as the BPRD location. And I just love how bureaucratic it is. But again, like, great simplification of like this kind of like mid-century interior, and it's like it already looks old and antiquated. And then just this great panel of Hellboy who's on his radio, and this gooey green skull dripping shit. And I love how his tail swishes out here. Just a remarkable thing, you know, and everybody's, you know, like, oh shit, the professor's dead. And we get the end of our first issue. You know, and you know, it's looking mysterious and Victorian and Gothic, and that's what I fucking love. Damn Frogs. You know, we have our cast of Nazi characters here. Elsa Hopstein, Karl Ruprecht Kronen, von Krupp, Klaus Werner von Krupp, and unknown, but we also know who he is. Yeah, and then also I always remember this little thing at the back end that's an African myth about frogs. That's basically why he's treated them as kind of antagonistic rather than, you know, oh, they're cute little frogs. Like, no, frogs are bad. Yeah, basically frogs are conniving, sneaky. So this, yeah, first issue of Hellboy. And boy, is it a banger. Can't believe I said that. Yeah, just incredible first start to it. Like, you know, art first and foremost is of course impressive, but it's also just setting the stage for the kind of gothic Lovecraftian horror to be expected in the future. Yeah, it's still to this day like holds up. It's still a gorgeous looking comic. It's an interesting setup to an even more interesting world. So thanks, Mike Mignola. More on this comic later. But for now, thanks for joining me, and stay spooky.